Hello, our friends.
Hello there, welcome back.
Please do subscribe, guys. Both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and also over on EEARTS. And we're going to start out with this video that's been deleted from every platform years ago. This guy, Chef86, who just says, hey, he's just another teed off old man here. There's a lot of those on this planet and women, because we should be. We really should be with everything that's going on.
The international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. The order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
So you think that was doctored, or do you think that is legit? Let's just listen one more time.
The international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. The order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Wow. So it's so interesting that when you look at it, it looks like it was taken in the 50s, doesn't it? I mean, it looks so old. It feels so old, yet, the time when he was in the Casablanca was not that long ago.
And when you listen to his voice, you can hear that demonic overtone under it. It's horrible.
Again, it's not a left-right thing, because by the time anybody gets into a position of any sort of authority, they're bought and paid for. Did you catch that move? Did you catch that move? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Is that just a normal thing everybody does when they go and sit down on their bumpkin?
Yeah. It just he's stretching his hands.
Yeah, and some say he's not the one of the original four. And the sad fact is, when we do scan the energies of the celebrities, they did sell their soul to Satan, so to speak, in so many ways to get to where they are.
They did, and you really get good at reading this energy when you compare it to others. You can start to just feel it right away.
Yeah, feel the energy, and that's one of the things that I'm noticing myself doing more and more as I see different people saying different things on Twitter and different social platforms, and they're totally missing the mark. So often they're totally missing the mark, and it's just kind of perplexing when you can just read the energy and see what's going on. They're so infiltrated in every single aspect of our lives, every single thing, every different aspect from again, you could see many people here that are obviously in front of pulpits. Absolutely. They are in front of pulpits. They're in politics. They're in the education system. They're certainly in the media. It's just completely saturated. Everything we see, even when we want to believe something, even when you feel maybe that you are drawn to a certain piece of music or a movie or whatever it is, even a politician, which we should always be suspicious of anybody that rises into a position of authority, because they have to come through these certain lines. Only people that have gone through certain streams, certain different groups, can be allowed to get into a position of authority. This is just the way it is, or even allowed to share on the highest stages, like the Super Bowl, for instance. Even in the movies that maybe we think are illuminating us and giving us clues to the bigger picture going on. The infiltration is so intense. And yes, they do reveal some hidden secrets for those that they know are going to figure it out in the first place. But what they'll do is they will distort. Okay, we're doing this. Okay, you understand what's going on, but at the same time, you don't really understand, because they'll always take it off in a tangent. This is the time right after 45's first meeting with 44 in Casablanca, in which he looked pale as a ghost. Pale as a ghost. Like he was just told something that would scare the crap out of anybody. Or maybe even came face to face with something that he wasn't prepared to see firsthand. Again, you can rise up through the echelons. You might hear rumors. You might even know things to be fact. But until you actually are exposed to certain energies, it's just something that's conceptualized in the mind. When we're exposed to these energies firsthand, again, it's like going to the zoo, so to speak, and you watch from one side of the bars, the person that's handling the lions or the bears. Something totally different when you are on the other side of the cage in there with a lion or a bear.
And
or a dinosaur.
Right, or a dinosaur, right? And keep in mind, too, that this is not a judgmental kind of energy. This is an energy that comes over you, so you know how to react to it. It's that very innocent, instinctual energy before any kind of indoctrination. And that's what we want to look for. We want to look to see inside of our soul, and how do we really feel? So it's about moving past that. It's about moving past the judgmental part of things and knowing that inner knowing that something is wrong here, and going with that initial feeling. And no, it's definitely, I can't stress enough, it's not about being judgmental. It's not about following any kind of logic. It's about accepting what comes into you and knowing that that's true.
Another thing that hits me here is what's in the basket right in front of the camera. The apple, the temptation from of course, Adam and Eve in the Bible is just a rehash of much, much older legends. But again, it's the one the vast majority of people know. As we said, 60% or so of the world, 2/3 of the world comes from an Abrahamic tradition mindset. Islam, Christianity, Judaism. So we're all brought up with these stories and allegories. And it does something to our deep psyche. Again, it triggers certain lines of thinking. It triggers certain synapses to fire. And it distorts, again, our viewpoint on things. Because everything we're giving, everything is a distortion. It's all a distortion. And there's one dead end after another. As people wake up to what's going on, there's always another dead end for you. Or you could view it like, okay, this one is awake, like Roddy Piper, and they live. Oh, I got one that can see. And boy, there's allegory there. That can see. Let thine eye be single, and you will be full of light. Again, see with your third eye. Well, we could see. Here you have Robo Joe Biden just malfunctioning, and you could see he's asked a question, and he's just standing there. It's like the clone is glitching. The clone's glitching. And I know, some will not be able to accept clones, but cloning is a reality. I mean, gosh, we had Dolly the sheep 40 years ago. Was it even more? I want to say that was closer to like 76, or I'm not sure if it was 81 or so. This clone's glitching. The technology is not 70 years ahead of us. Maybe 70,000 years is more accurate. And I understand that so many people cannot accept this. But then you get people like these kids. Farming needs to stop. That's the single biggest driver of climate change. These kids are wind-up puppets. Most of humanity is a wind-up puppet that doesn't understand how to discern for itself.
And no, and a lot of the things on the mainstream are actually spell casting. It's sending out that energy of agreement and agreeing to a certain force to allow itself to overcome you. And that's why we really do need to be careful of what we watch, because we might be submitting ourselves to that kind of spell casting. And if you are one that watches everything, which, I understand, I'm curious to cleanse yourself, ground yourself out, meditate. Don't let that energy permeate inside of you.
Without a doubt, most of the world is under a deep, deep, dark spell. And we see gold is migrating from west to east. Yes, and we've talked about this before, as has all the power. It's shifting. It's just a new location to be the center point in the stage. There's nothing new under the sun. And to quote again Shakespeare, and it's true. There is nothing new under the sun. All they do is change. You got to realize too. So they understand that people are going to wake up and realize, that the left is being manipulated against the right's being manipulated against the left. Two sides, one coin. Ultimately, the whole political system is a sham. Not just in the U.S., not just in Canada, not just in the U.K. or Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. Everywhere. Any country that is under these particular banks is under the spell. It's the monetary system that they control us with. It's the monetary system they're going to use to control us to a much higher degree. That's the thing we need to get out of. And how do we do it is the massive question. The only way I can envision it is doing it in small areas, just like poking holes with a needle through a little bit of tin foil in order to let light come through from the other side, or however you want to envision it. There's going to have to be a lot of holes poked. Little towns, little portions of cities, little neighborhoods where people start to barter and trade together, start to work together, even come up with their own form of monetary system and support each other through the tough times that are coming ahead. It's going to have to be small and then blossom to where maybe you do have whole states or counties. Maybe you have counties leaving states, states leaving countries, countries leaving the monetary system, which is controlled by these central banks, which are controlled by the families that actually carry out the will of Satan, which is just the adversary. It's another name for the adversary here on earth. The adversary of humanity in so many ways does look a little bit like what we think the devil looks like per se. But it's not a singular entity that is the way we've envisioned the devil. Again, we wake up and we realize mom and dad are the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and Santa Claus all rolled up in one. They mean well. Now, they mean well, even if they're giving us a distortion. The controllers are doing the same thing. They don't mean well.
No, they don't mean well at all. So we have to keep as hard as it is, we have to keep some kind of a positive attitude about what is going on. So if we look at things like the adversary is actually giving us an opportunity to do the right thing. It's giving us that opportunity to grow. It's giving us that opportunity to be nice when we could have been mean. It gives us the opportunity to be understanding when we could have just, pushed someone away for something. Opportunities to take that part of us that might be in fear and turn that around and try something new. So we just got to maintain the perspective, and that's really going to take us a long way, and that's what evolution is about.
And it's not Darwinian. It's not that 33rd degree Mason known as Charles Darwin's form of evolution, but there is evolution. So they want you to, again, throw out the baby with the bathwater. And when you come to the realization that what they teach you about evolution is not exactly how it works, then they want you to throw the whole concept away, because the whole concept is actually something that is found in this universe and how things progress, because everything is energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changed forms. And we're all here to learn and to grow. And so it's natural that things evolve. And yes, we also exist on other densities. So again, the physical realm is just one aspect of us, the bigger us. So large volumes of precious metals are being drawn out of vaults like gold in financial centers like New York and heading over to Shanghai or Istanbul. This is part of the big change in the power structure. And again, really it just means who's going to be the new police force and military force for the NWO. And, we could call it the NWO, we could call it the One World Order, we could call it whatever we want. Again, certain people have a certain fondness for different titles, labels. The controllers, that kind of suffices to me.
Yeah, I like the controllers.
Yeah, because they do control the reality on this planet. The other thing that they do is, again, they keep us in these closed-minded loops where we can't conceive of anything but, again, and I've had people say this, wait a minute, so you're not really into capitalism? Well, what's capitalism all about? It's about, basically stuff. No, we're not into capitalism. How about communism? No, we're not. And then again, communism is another thing that's been distorted, because you might believe that people should share resources, perhaps not even have concepts of ownership. As many indigenous people, well, yeah, they did own maybe certain items, like something that you would eat out of, your own bowl. I'm thinking of when they go and they look for the next Dalai Lama or the next Buddha, they look for certain signs, and they will bring familiar items from the last life in front of the person to see if they recognize it, see if there's some sort of energetic connection, to see if the soul is part of the same soul reincarnating again in a new body. Not those type of things, not necessarily the clothes off your back, but again, ownership of land and ownership of houses and things like this. We know that the controllers want to own everything and lease it all to us. So you get these concepts that get stuck in people's heads. Well, you're either or. You're either a capitalist or a communist. You're a Democrat or a Republican. Oh, you're one of those crazy independents. Well, how about I don't buy the system at all? The system's rigged. The complete system itself is just something that we need to think outside of. Again, thinking outside of the box.
Mm-hmm. And these beings are beings that want to go ahead and slap that label on themselves like they are the gods, because they're allowing us to use things that really they own. And this is where history comes in when they speak about the gods. They're beings that think they have a right to everything, and they think they have a right to tell us how to live, why to live, give us information that we live by. And they really consider themselves gods. It's really yucky.
And people don't understand even the most basic of concepts. When people will say, the Most High God, well, I follow the Most High God. Okay, well, again, right away, when you say the Most High God, you're putting something into a classification where it's at the top of the class, but it's still one of the same type. Hello, it's just right over the head, not perceiving what's being said. Again, it's speaking in the multiplicity that we find spoken of in Deuteronomy 32:8, where God sits at the council of the gods, and where God basically divvied out the nations amongst the sons of the gods. When we go back to the oldest translations, that's what we find. It's a plural word, and it really does kind of echo the mythology of ancient Greece and many, and really all the ancient lands where they talk about these beings. Now, none of these are the creator of the universe. There is a creator that created this universe, and there is a source of all things. But it's not what we would think when we are, again, in that satanic system per se. And again, Satan just means the adversary to humanity and of the whole world, really, because this system is one which rapes, robs, and pillages the entire planet, every life form on it. There's no respect for any life form on this planet. None. Zilch. Zero. Not a little ounce. And so the true adversary is obviously not the creator of this universe. The thing that has been in my mind is some of the people that profess a belief in the Most High God. If that God comes at some point in time and jumps out of a gigantic mothership, I do think there's going to be an awful lot that are just going to knowingly follow them. Even knowing that this is an oppressor, this is a dark being that is making slaves of humanity and subjecting everybody on the planet to its will. And it's not the creator of the universe, but I think there are those that will know all this and still follow.
Mm-hmm. And you know, it's so important to wake up. But what does that mean? What does wake up mean? And how do you wake up? You have to be willing to lay down all the information that you ever thought you knew, ever, and be able to reassess. And this is where the opening of the pineal gland starts. It starts with that understanding that, oh my gosh, maybe this belief system was fed to me to make me act a certain way. Well, what's the truth? And so you start searching for the truth. And that pineal gland, it's going to bring you to your truth.
So remember when 46 said the ruble is rubbish? Well, this is 8 months later or so in a Russian supermarket. Look at this supermarket. Donuts are 69 cents. Wow, lots of fruit. I don't see where sanctions seem to be having much of a effect here. Everything looks pretty full. Yeah, tons of candy to go around, tons of everything. Boy, these shelves are packed. And, you know, again, I wonder what the average cost is. So, you know, I'll have the links for you. And, you know, this is one person. This is another person. This is a person in St. Petersburg, living in St. Petersburg, Russia. And again, very well stocked. Everything is full. So what effect are the sanctions having? The completely desired effect of helping to destroy NATO nations and the U.S. because they're done. They're done using the U.S. and NATO as the policemen, the military force of the NWO, the One World Order, the Cabal, the whatever you want to call them. The power structure is just shifting. Why is it shifting? Well, because look at China. Nobody has any rights out in the open. There's no rights. It's a total police state. It's a total technocracy. And that's what they want for the entire world. So they're just shifting their power base. But, you know, there are some perks for all those people that are being drafted right now in Russia. You get a whole bag of vegetables. Yay! Oh, well, we lost Dad. We lost our brother. We lost whoever. But we did get a bag of vegetables.
Oh, how kind.
Yeah. And here, where have all the men in Moscow gone? Interesting, too, because Moscow's population, Moscow is like physically 3 times larger than New York City and has like 1.5 times the amount of people in it, for those that don't realize how big Moscow is. And they're just talking about how there is a obvious lack of men compared to, you know, in the past. And this is really just starting, unless we can wake up enough people that we get people to just say no. Just say no. I mean, don't go along with this. Resist. The elites have always done this. The ladies and the lords of the castle have said, we need to raise an army, so they go and grab the peasants. Peasants have no choice at all. They just simply have to go, or many times they were just executed on the spot. This realization has to come to the masses. 7 billion crabs disappeared from the Bering Straits in the last 4 years. The industry faces ruin with shortages and price increases already occurring. And let me go back just a moment to the Russian supermarkets, because again, when you look at who has the grain stores, the vast majority of the grain stores on the planet, it's China. China has stockpiled the vast majority of grains that have been produced in the last several years. They have stockpiled it because they're the ones that are intended to survive through these times by the controllers, the planners. Where did these 7 billion crabs go? Were they beamed up? Were they sent to a different planet? Well, they don't know. And in fact, this article is talking about it. The seas are basically empty. Experts are divided on a cause of the disappearance. Some scientists believe disappearance related to migration or starvation, both of which can be connected to climate change. Again, the whole concept of original sin is blaming humans for the slavery they find themselves in. And this is what they do. They're blaming climate change for their own technological manipulation and weather control and geoengineering and all the laws and different things that get put into effect. They blame us for this, just like the concept of original sin. Could be new disease, but anyway, population, 90% of them is gone. 90% are gone. And how much? This is just one little brick in the wall of the big famine that's being manipulated around the world.
Right. And look how we are exposed to the concept that we are the problem. Look what book promotes the fact that we are the sinners and we don't deserve anything. They expose us at an age that is so young. Most likely, unless you wake up and you see things, you're going to go along with it. You're going to go along with what they give you because they've started at such a young age. What else is there to believe?
So it's the core belief set that is the problem. Because, again, history is written by the victors. And 300 years after Yeshua walked the earth, they were debating what his real mission was. They were debating who he was. These things were debated and argued, but again, it was a Roman emperor who made the final decisions. And somebody wrote down that his bishops yelled at him. Yeah, you don't yell at an emperor and keep your head. Again, the ultimate ruling is going to come from on high, quote unquote. Yeah, absolutely. EU inflation smashes historic highs. Surging food and energy costs continue to drive prices higher across the bloc. So 10.9% year on year in September, new record high across the 27-member bloc. This is all about destroying NATO and destroying, the U.S., U.K. Just the Western civilization has achieved what it was meant to achieve. Again, they use different belief systems. They use different political ideologies. They raise them up in order to have them fight another, which again just keeps humanity divided, and then they'll bring in another one. The belief systems don't really matter, because none of the dogmas really give you the true reality. And dogmas are all about division. So you see the Fed's going to have to choose between a rock and a hard place. And 2008, remember how that was? We had too much debt and the inability to pay. Well, it's a lot worse now. A lot worse now. So it's going to be an economic chaos. We understand that, and that's why we've been, again, asking everybody to, just do as you can for years. and be ready to help your neighbors as well, and work together, contact other like-minded people. Don't be afraid to wake people up to what's really going on here. And here you see liquefied natural gas tankers stranded off the Spain coast, waiting to get rid of what they have been carrying as cargo, but not being allowed to. Here we go again. This is all about manipulation. This is all about manipulation as China's oil imports soar, as Beijing prepares to supply European fuel demand. So all we get when we get these embargoes and sanctions is it creates more middlemen, and it also creates more suffering, and it creates higher prices and higher costs. And again, who suffers? Just the average people. Just the average people. U.S. housing starts plunge. Home builder confidence crashes. But multifamilies are up. Multifamilies, again, what do they want? They don't want you owning anything. We're all going to have little apartments like you see in Japan, where every person gets maybe a 200 square foot apartment, 300 square feet. If you get 400 square feet, count yourself blessed. This is what they want to move to. They want everybody to be herded into these mega cities eventually. Everybody they want out of the farmland, out of the countryside. Those areas are to be verboten, to use a term there. Yeah, they're going to be forbidden. And I think that we touched on a nerve when we were saying, again, they'll use technologies such as the rods of God and other technologies which are non-NUKE, but they might say that these areas are off limits because they're too dangerous for you. Too dangerous to go into. You know, the big war and how it all happened. And yeah, these areas, no. You're not allowed to go in these areas. Too dangerous. You might come out glowing. Who knows? Maybe Godzilla's in there. Maybe there's some giant crabs in there, giant spiders in there that will come get you. But the reality is, this is why you have to live in the mega city. This is why you have no choice but to get your universal basic income and go live in one of these places that we tell you, where you're surrounded by all the technology that keeps you effectively under lock and key.
Mm-hmm. And, to put this in perspective, what keeps jumping out at me is, I don't know how many of you guys remember that movie, The Truman Show. Oh my gosh, that really helps us put it in a place where we can have a deeper understanding of the control they want to have, and the extent they will go to make sure people are too afraid to do certain things, because that keeps us in a corral if we're afraid of something. So that's just a really, really good analogy to realize what we're up against.
Canada to enter recession first half of 2023, says Scotiabank. Well, yeah, we understand where we're heading. And I wouldn't even say recession. Now they're talking recession's 100%. It's coming. Absolutely no doubt about it. Yeah, it's everything, every single thing that's been laid out in the road ahead of us. And it's not a recession. This is the Great Reset that we see underway. China wants to seize Taiwan on a much faster timeline than previously thought. They were, again, in many of the U.S. military, you had many of the analysts saying 2027, maybe 2030. Well, now they're saying it's much, much earlier. And Xi gave a big speech, which kind of bolstered that logic. And again, when we look to the Pluto return of the U.S., which they follow everything astrologically to a T, because they understand the programming of the matrix that we are in, the natural matrix that we're in, as they are creating their artificial matrix. The U.S. is going through the Pluto return 2022 through 2024. When we get to 2025, it's a different world. It's just a different world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our magnetic frequency is going to react to that Pluto return. And since they do have a deep understanding of the stars and how what a big role that they play in our lives, they know the direction our hearts and minds are going to go, so they can use that to their advantage. But they can only use it to their advantage only if we are not understanding what is going on.
So, Senate seeking $10 billion for military aid for Taiwan. How much of that's going to end up, just basically being taken over by the CCP? Probably a large portion of it. Or at least, this is another black hole, just like the Ukraine. Doesn't mean people are going to not lose their lives. Absolutely. People always lose their lives. Go back to the peasants that were conscripted by the lords and ladies of the castles back in feudal times, which really have never changed. Just the legalese, the terminology's changed, but the reality hasn't changed. Yes, absolutely. People's lives to the controllers are basically meaningless. And so, it's just another black hole, another way of creating tension and also bleeding the West till the point where it looks like the ancient medical system. And in so many ways, our current medical system still is like putting leeches on people and thinking that that's going to actually do good. They need a little more bloodletting. Yeah. And then they die because they've been drained dry. And that's what's happening to, basically society in a big way. U.S. intercepts 2 Russian bombers off Alaskan coast, proven no threat. And so these were Tu-95 Bear H bombers that were entering and operating within Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. Not the first time. Won't be the last time either. Meanwhile, Putin declares martial law in the annexed regions of Ukraine, and this is what war does. It creates that martial law scenario where you can't see what's happening, really, and you can't really even know what's happening, and life is just suspended. The normal life is just suspended. Civilians to be relocated from Kherson as well. They're going to be moving people out of certain areas, which they know are going to get hotter as we get colder and head into the winter. British intelligence predicted the Ukraine war 30 years ago. Actually, all this was predicted going back to the 80s. There's been numerous predictions made by various individuals of exactly what we see. And losing billions of people on the planet, in fact. As I'm going through one book on the Yale Skull and Bones Society, another book on the Committee of 300, then another one that dates back to the French Revolution that talks about all these different groups, let's just use that terminology, that are manipulating things from behind the scenes. This is ancient, guys. Flesh-eating bacteria infects Florida communities ravaged by Hurricane Ian. And this is called Vibrio vulnificus. That sounds evil, doesn't it? 65 infections of this year. There was 37 cases reported prior to the landfall. So they've basically exploded since landfall. And it is something that we've seen in Florida. There was 10 deaths last year and 34 cases, so more than double the cases. It's definitely something that's scary.
And it is. And again, another reason for us to raise our immune system so we're not even susceptible with that, because I feel what has happened here is they've given people a lot of food that is going to bring about inflammation and get you susceptible to all these other things. So we got to learn to lower the inflammation in our body, and that goes to everything we put in our mouth, we put on our body. All of these lotions, makeups, all of these things have to go through our skin in our body and ultimately really cause problems. So that's why we have to be so awake, and so we're not doing that to ourselves.
And again, this is also a sign of lowered immune systems. And, all this, including what Cindy was just saying about the quality of the food and the fact that all you're going to find is food that is not going to boost your immune system. This was spoken of in 1981. And that one book I was sharing with you guys about, 1981. And in that book, what they had gotten was that, they thought the planet would probably be better off with about 3 billion less people. 3 billion less people on it. And we see these cards. Oh, you guys know these cards. The group that starts with an I and ends with an I. Flesh-eating bacteria. Disaster. Yeah, this is... everything is out there. Specific memories can be erased when you sleep using simple sound cue method. Oh, the programming. Our memories can be erased. The thought is, too, when we go through a magnetic reversal, we do get a memory wipe. So perhaps we don't even remember all the disasters that we went through. We don't necessarily remember everything. We wake up with amnesia trying to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we might not remember, our brains might not remember, but our DNA always remembers. And that's why so many of us are, we've been through this before, and our bodies and our energy knows it. It understands it, and it's asking, okay, get ready. I don't want to do this again. So yeah, listening to that aspect of us is very, very, very important right now.
And the alphabet soups understand, they analyze people, they use all different techniques on people to get them to forget certain things. And this is just a fact. And we've touched on those things in the past, and there's so many things that are just right out there in front of us. If we just start stringing them all together, it's obvious what's going on, guys. Completely obvious on every level. So thank you guys for your support on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys over there. Also on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation to support the channel, or monthly. And it goes in the form of coffees, which you can manipulate over here. And do check out Medicinal Foods. Good people here. They're not really so concerned with making money. They really want to boost people's immune systems because they understand what we understand. That humanity is basically facing a situation in which most of the world has a compromised immune system. So you need to boost it. You could do that by supplementing with things that are going to be healthy for you. You can also do it through periodic fasting, whether it's intermittent fasting or periods of wet or dry fasting. And dry fasting, again, is something that you have to really build up to. And, again, everything they say should be supervised by your DR. Yet again, ask your doctor how much nutrition maybe he's had in school, because you'll be stunned with the average amount of nutritional study that most have to acquire. It's very, very small, very, very nominal.
Mm-hmm. It's important that we do our own study. We need to figure it out. We are in charge of us, and if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. So we got to learn. Thank you, everyone. Source bless, and namaste.
Namaste.